Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Chamber Conversations. Today, we're excited to have Kate Grant from York County Community College with us. She's going to talk a little bit about workforce development and some of the programs that the community college system has. So I'm going to just ask everybody to pop on and introduce themselves. I'll call you out in terms of the how I see you in your boxes on my screen. Then I'll turn it over to Kate. So thank you, Kate, for joining us, and thank you, Ryan, Carrie, and Carrie. So Ryan, why don't you go first?
Yeah, thanks. Excited for this. I'm Ryan Gossler, own the Lady Mary Inn in North Berwick, and I'm happy to be here.
Okay, Carrie Curley. Want to say hello?
Sorry, it took me a minute to get it turned on. Hi, I'm Carrie Curley with In Season Resorts. I'm the HR manager for a management company.
Thanks, Carrie. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Carrie Averill, are you with us? You want to say hello?
Are you talking to me?
No, there's another Carrie.
Okay.
Right to your right. She might be getting coffee or something like that, which I'm often want to do at the beginning of these seminars. Turn off my video, go get coffee and come back. So Carrie, anyway, Carrie's also with a lodging property. So you've got 3 lodging properties on here with you, Kate. All right, at this point, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Well, wonderful. I really appreciate the invite to this, and I'm going to try and not make this death by PowerPoint, but I do have some PowerPoint slides that I wanted to share. What I'm going to do is give like a 10,000 overview of York County and where we are in terms of like economic development, and then really bring it down a little bit more to the work that we're doing here at York County Community College to work to support our business and community. And then I'll open it up for questions. So I'll be honest with you, this is a small enough group that if you have questions as we go, just ask, because I think this can really be informal, open dialogue, ask questions. And ultimately what we want to know here is how can we help? And how can we help support the work that you're doing? So I'm going to jump over to my presentation and share that. Can you guys all see my screen? Okay, awesome. So I wanted to start a little bit with our purpose, mission, and vision, because I think this is something that really says who we are as an institution. And I think one of the things we're really looking to do is to inspire and empower our students and our companies and community partners to thrive. Our college is doing well and doing what we're supposed to be doing if the people within our community are also thriving. And so that's really what drives the college. And I can say, especially myself and our department here at the college. This is going to be the 10,000-foot overview of York County. And I'm kind of a data geek, which I would never have expected if you'd asked me when I came out of high school if I'd start being interested in this. This is really interesting. And I have a full report of an economic report for York County. If anyone's interested, I'm happy to send the full document out. It's about 30 pages. It's got up to date, some pretty accurate information. Well, it is accurate information, but it's as accurate as the dates that we have in here. So overall, York County is the fastest growing county in Maine. We're also one of the older counties in Maine. And I want to just highlight a little bit here the age demographics in York County. So if you're looking here, and I have this highlighted, between 18 to 64 years old, which is really that working population, though really 16 probably is really when a lot of people start working part-time at least. We're looking at about 61.2% of the population that's between that 18 to 64 years of age. So already you're really narrowing down that pool, and I think that pool is going to get more and more narrow unless we're bringing in other people into the state, or, and this is something I'm very passionate about, re-engaging recent retirees to come back into the workforce by offering flexible schedules. So I think that's a way that we can really tap into some of the skills that already exist. Educational attainment. So within York County, you can see York County, Maine, and also across the US. So the highest level of attainment for 5.2% of our population in York County is a high school or no high school diploma. 29.6, the highest that they've achieved has been their high school diploma. And then I just put a star here. One of the things I'm particularly interested in are those individuals who started and achieved some sort of college credit, but never actually finished the credential. And that's where I think the college could probably do the most to move the needle for a lot of individuals in Maine. And then you can see kind of up and through the postgraduate level. Some employment trends for York County. So this right here, when you're looking, obviously that huge dip is when we walked into a pandemic, and you can see that we are going up, which has been really great. What's interesting is this unemployment rate in York County. We're actually on par right now with the rest of Maine. For a little while, we're actually doing a little bit better with unemployment. We've kind of leveled off with the rest of Maine, and we're doing a little bit better than the rest of the United States. But overall, our unemployment rate right now is 4.3%. This is an industry snapshot. So this is looking at York County and all of the industries that are contributing. And obviously the largest, I should say obviously, the largest, this is actually shocking to me when I first started my job, is manufacturing. And the LQs are location quotients, which means that we have a really high concentration of those particular industries based on the size in our area. So manufacturing, as you know, we have some really large manufacturers in York County. They're definitely the largest. And then you can see that it kind of moves down into retail, healthcare. And then I know we have accommodation and food services on here, and that's definitely in our top industries in Maine, in York County, excuse me. So this is looking at how many total are employed in York County in these industries, and then also the growth that's expected over the next 3 years in these particular industries. So manufacturing is going to be declining. I think that's going to be a little bit because of the technology that's coming in. The reality is that I think we are going to be having a lot of robotics, and the demand will probably decrease for some of the more manual pieces of those labors. Retail, trade, healthcare, social, again, accommodation and food services. What's exciting to me is that if you look specifically at the accommodation food services, we're going to end up seeing growth in that area over the next 3 years. And that's actually expected to be one of the higher growing areas in York County, which I think is going to be really important. And I know that there's, especially Ogunquit has a large group specifically working in this area. So I wanted to kind of bring it back now to YC. I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen just so I can see people's faces, and talk a little bit about what we're doing here within our workforce department and how I think we might be able to help support some of our local businesses, and also the people who live in our community. So we essentially have kind of 3 buckets of training and upskilling that we do within our department. So we do pre-hire training, and many of you might have seen on social media, on our website, we're really blasting out all of this training that we're doing for pre-hire. So this week we had a dental assisting program start. We had a pharmacy tech program start. We had phlebotomy program start. 2 weeks ago, we had a CNC academy start. We've got EMT. We've got a bunch of really short-term trainings where someone would come into that training and be able to get a job on the other end of it based on that short-term training and the industry recognized certification they get at the end. So all of the funding for that is coming through the Maine Jobs and Recovery Plan. So that's the funding that came down from the governor through the state to the workforce departments. Those programs are free for students. So that means that their books are covered, the certification vouchers at the end are covered, the actual training itself is covered. It's an incredible opportunity, and it's limited to those people who are residents of Maine, 18 years or older, and they have to have at least their high school diploma or the equivalent in order to qualify. As of right now, this is actually really exciting because this isn't happening across the rest of the state. All of our programs are full, and that's awesome. That means that people are taking advantage of it. We have employers reaching out to us on the other end saying, let us know when these people are done because we want to talk to them and hire them. And again, like I feel like this is moving the needle for those people who otherwise haven't had enough training in skilled areas to be able to get those levels of jobs. What we've also been very intentional about doing is making sure that when we can, we're also creating an opportunity from our workforce trainings to on-ramp into our degree and certificate programs here at the college. So an example of that would be, we're running a medical assistant training program. So we've been working with York Hospital, Nassau Community Healthcare, and Southern Maine Healthcare. And the students are working 20 hours a week with one of the medical partners. They've been hired by them. We're delivering those educational components of the program. And then at the end, they'll sit for their certified clinical medical assistant test. What will happen then, once they pass that test and once they successfully move through the program, they will have been working within their place, almost like a working interview for 9 months. And then they'll also have 30 college credits that will roll into our health studies program, which would then give them the opportunity to explore things like nursing, rad tech, surge tech. What is that next level that they want to do after being a medical assistant? But it provides them with a skill set to be able to go get a job. And a lot of times these industries will help them pay for that next level of education. So we're really thinking strategically about, here's your short-term training, but what can that get you at the next level if you decide to continue, and being very thoughtful and strategic about that. So that's our pre-hire training. We are also thinking, and this actually may be of interest to this particular group, we're working on a new chef boot camp, which we're hoping to launch at the beginning of May. And that is going to be a 1-week program where we bring people in, and we're going to be reaching out to all of our restaurants in the area. Actually, I have a flyer here from the front porch, because we were chatting about the other day. When they hire new people coming in, what they're finding is they can do a lot of the on-the-job training with these new people. So they do the hiring, they do a lot of the on-the-job training, but what would help them is if the people had some basic skills like knife skills, they're serve safe, basic sauces, basic baking, all of those skills that will help them be able to enter the kitchen at a slightly higher level. So they're not putting so much strain on the existing staff to train them up, because they at least have a baseline level. So we're also looking at, you know, those 9 months trainings, but also really here's a 1-week training that's going to help you be a little bit more successful in your job, and also take a little bit less strain off of the existing employees when you're doing on-the-job training. So that will be coming out shortly. We're really looking to collaborate with local businesses and make this a free training option, so they can send us their new chefs or new line cooks, get them in, we can get them upskilled, and they can go back into the restaurants. So that's kind of like an onboarding kind of training, where we're kind of like working with the company to do some onboarding. And we can also do training that's for incumbent workers. And I will go back to sharing my screen in a second. So we can do upskilling for your current employees. So we're working with some businesses on frontline supervisors. They found that during the pandemic that they were able to promote a lot of people into supervision roles or supervisory roles, but they didn't necessarily have the skill sets to actually be good supervisors. And so now they're kind of taking a step back and saying, okay, what kind of training can we give them so that they can be successful as supervisors, instead of them getting frustrated and leaving, or those employees who are working for them leaving, where how can we help kind of bridge that gap so that your super successful employee, as they move up, still has that skill set that they need to be successful. So that's just one example. Another example that we're doing with another company is actually a manufacturing company. They have a lot of their employees who are really good at specific machines do the training for new people coming in. So they're good at their job. They're really good at that particular machine and making a certain part. They have a new person coming in. They're responsible for training that person, but they may not have the tools to be a good trainer. So we have a train the trainer training that we're doing for them to help them upskill so they understand what is the best way to work with that new employee when they're coming in. What does training look like? And then how can you map out that pathway for that person and know that they've been successful in completing that training that you've created? So really we're working with companies and kind of whatever it is they need, we're building it out. There's a ton of funding available, which is the last part that I wanted to talk about. And I'm going to share, actually, hang on. Before I just steamroll on, does anyone have any questions? I talk really fast. No? Okay. I just want to share some of the funding that we have available. So I can get my right screen here. Okay. So all of the Maine's community colleges, so there's 7 total community colleges in Maine. We all live underneath this umbrella of the Maine community college system. And all of the workforce departments are kind of connected in some level at the system level as well. And this is where a lot of the funding sources get kind of dropped down from the state, or the Harold Law Funds have been a large contributor. And then that kind of branches out to each of the colleges for businesses to access. This landing page, and I will share this as kind of a follow-up resource for people, is where you can come start looking for information on how to get funding to get this training. So this right here, workforce training all in one place. If you wanted to get training, so if you were somebody who was like, I need to learn a new skill, you could click on this and it would let you know, like, here are some of the different trainings. You can look, search by location, you can look for scholarships, you can see the current free trainings that we have available. You also can do the train my workforce. So this is really intended more for business owners. We have a lot of HR people who kind of jump in here and start thinking about how can we upskill our employees. So there's different ways that you can access different funds depending on what you're looking at. And if you don't know, ask me and I'll help you figure out which bucket it is that you can pull from. So one of the big things right now for incumbent employees is this workforce compact. And this workforce compact, you check it out, I'm gonna click on it so you can see it. The chamber, the Ogunquit chamber did sign already this compact, which is really exciting because it kind of almost creates an umbrella for a lot of these individual businesses. There is a application to fill out. It'll take roughly, I would say maybe 10 minutes to do it. And it kind of gives you a list of the information that you need to have ahead of time so you can just successfully complete it. What you can do then once you become a workforce compact member is you can get $1,200 per employee for training. That's an incumbent employee. And it's really supposed to be specific toward your frontline workers. But that means if you're looking to get serve safe training, or you wanted to tap into like the chef boot camp that we're going to be offering, or if you wanted to have a supervision training just at your location, you can fill that out and tap into it to get the access to funds to be able to do the training. This is a really incredible opportunity. So for this year, it's $1,200 per employee. For next year, it's going to be a match. So it's $600, and then they'll match on the other end another $600 for each employee. And then this is the other super exciting part for me as an educator. Anyone who participates and successfully completes any of these trainings, so they do a serve safe training, it's a 2-day training and they successfully complete it, there's their checkbox, they did it, they will then have an opportunity to get a college scholarship for a 3-credit college course if they decide that they want to continue. So they could do a serve safe training, but then we say, okay, awesome, great, but then also here's this opportunity for you to take a college course at any of the main community colleges. It doesn't have to be just YC. That could be an online in-person course. It doesn't cover the textbooks, but it does cover the course and the fees. So you're giving that opportunity then for your employee to get the training while they're, your employee, but then also saying, and also here's a way for you to kind of continue your development. And that I think is also really exciting as we start thinking about upskilling Maine and educating Maine and really being able to move Maine forward. So any questions?
Okay, I have a question. So we have lodging property owners on here. So, you've kind of addressed some of the food and beverage issues and, general supervisory training.
Yeah.
I also know that Sarah from the Beachmere was interested in working with you on an apprenticeship similar to what the Maine Diner's doing.
Yeah.
Address anything that's more specific to lodging properties that you might have available? That'd be awesome.
Yeah, so we do not currently have anything in workforce, and that's partially because we've had a certificate that's lived on the academic end of the college specific around hospitality management. That is being reworked. And I think there's an opportunity. We did talk about this with Beachmere. So what we did with the Maine Diner is we looked at creating a formalized apprenticeship with the Maine Department of Labor. It's a 1-year apprenticeship. They do all of their work with the Maine Diner, and then we deliver a small business management certificate on our end. So when they finish at the end of that year, they have a small business management certificate. I think it's a total of 18 college credits they could roll into an associate's degree. Within there's 6 credits that we've customized specific to the restaurant industry. And in our conversations, when we did that Hospitality Maine event, could we do something like that for the hospitality realm? And I think that could be a really cool opportunity to think about, like, yes, you're taking accounting and you're learning marketing and you're learning some of those things that you need to be successful as a business person. But then what are some of those specific skills that you would need in that 6-credit module that we build out that somebody would need specific to hospitality? So I would love to pick the brains of the people here and take notes, because it is something that is on the radar. We know that it's a high demand area. So I'd love to hear what you guys have for ideas. And if you don't have any right now, that's okay.
Specifically, what kind of skills would you guys be looking for that the college could help train people for? Kind of where are you seeing the biggest deficiencies in your, in your applications? Where are your biggest needs in terms of employees. I guess that might be a good way to get the ball
That's a
rolling.
great way of putting it. Thank you, Alice.
Actually, I have a question about this, and I'm sure we all are in the same boat. And I came from higher education before coming into this industry, and a lot of the curriculum that we talk about never touches on the term soft skills, right? So those people skills, and how do you can carry a GPA and you can complete a class and you can get a certificate, but I can't make you a friendly person or a think on your feet person. How does some of your program, like that's a massive thing for me, right? How is your personality going to fit into my brand and my image? And this is what we're doing. How does the community college group look at some of those tasks?
I can't speak to the academic end of the house because I think you're right. I think that is a big piece of it. And I think communication also is the other thing we hear a lot from employers, both verbal and written communication skills, and using appropriate ways to do that in different formats. So within our programs, I can tell you that we do work on soft skills within our program, but it's not like a specific, like today we're going to work on greeting customers. That is not to say we can't do that if that was something that a company or business asked us for. The training that we do for Pratt Whitney, so we do all of their new hire training for all of their new machinists coming in. It's a 3-week program, 140 hours. We have built in their sessions specific to communication, critical thinking skills, collaboration. And so they're doing a total of, I think of those 160 hours they're doing, I would say probably about 20 hours specific to soft skill development. And we do have some really good instructors. We just need a business to tell us this is what you need.
And how are those, sorry, how are those measured? Like what in the Pratt and Whitney example?
The assessment piece, yep. Yeah, so they actually have rubrics. So they use those rubrics to really figure out like where does the student land in terms of this is where you started at the beginning, and then this is how you're being assessed, right? Being fair and open, honest about the rubric system, and then being able to assess them on the other end. That's a great question. The soft skill development, this is totally a sidebar note. I wrote an innovation grant last year, actually specifically around this area to fund a position that would work specifically on soft skill development for businesses. It got delayed because of the COVID stuff, but that's something that we do intend to use. And we do have it still. It's just a matter of bringing that person in and getting curriculum developed. So it's coming, and that would be a person dedicated specifically to that. But we don't have it. Anything else beyond, I mean, and I think actually the conversation around soft skills, like what are you finding? What are you seeing? Where are people struggling the most when you're bringing them in?
I mean, I can just jump in. So what I see is, I mean, they call it Angry August for a reason. And I see that when guests come in, they're just a little more, they just expect, their expectations are really up, and we're already really tired, and we've been running for half a season already. And so what I see the front desk staff doing is they're getting a little short, they get their, they're not as quick to help. They're not, it's kind of just kind of like getting through the task and not really helping the guest. Right.
Yeah.
So, so I mean, I would really love to see, just to piggyback on that. Like when I do my hiring, I hire for attitude. I can teach somebody how to take a reservation and how the phone lines. I have to teach all that. But what I can't teach is someone who will show up on time, or just will show up, and be polite on the phone. And when someone does come in and say, the beds are too hard or something, like how to handle that appropriately. Yeah, and the other thing I wanted to mention too was, so we don't have really any high school or college age kids working with us. I've tried reaching out to high schools and things, and no one applies. What we do get for applicants are people who, retirement and looking for like something to do in retirement. So there's a huge gap in skills there too, because they maybe don't even have email. They don't even use email, and a lot of what we do is online now. So I don't know if there's a way that, I don't know who you see for students. Are you seeing a younger crowd, or you're seeing the, people who want a different career?
Yeah, so Carrie, to answer that question, we see mostly non-traditional students in our short-term workforce trainings. We do have some that are like recently out of high school, but for the most part, we see people who are typically in anywhere from probably 30s up through probably, I would say, early 50s. That seems to be roughly where most of our students land. And we do have definitely some tech skills gaps. So we actually have a student that we're working with right now. Like, we meet with students on Zoom to do interviews for those programs. Like, if you haven't used Zoom before, like, that's a new skill you need to learn, right? Like, that's something that you're using it every day, you take for granted. So, we're bringing her in to really take her back a couple of steps and be like, okay, like, here's how you get into Google Docs, because she doesn't have Microsoft Word. So like, here's how you can do a Google Doc. So I think, we're doing a little bit of that scaffolding for some of those individuals. And I can also tell you that even that younger generation, we're on the academic end of the house, they're really good with their phones, really, really good with their phones. They're not always necessarily super great when it comes to Excel or using Word the correct way, because they haven't always necessarily had to use that. So yeah, I think that's great. And I actually wrote that down because I think that's interesting. It's that, you have your different skills gaps for high school, college age students, and you might for the tech skills gaps for some of those returning. That's great. Yeah. Anything else?
Hi, sorry, I was a little late. I can piggyback off of what Carrie's saying. I think that our industry is very emotional based. It's disposable income, and people are saving up a lot of money to travel. Their expectations coming out of the pandemic are way greater now than I think that they've ever been. And the kind of emotional pressure I think that's putting on our hourly line workers, front desk, certainly, where do I go? What do I do? I want everything handed to me. Their expectations on housekeeping service, and the pendulum kind of swinging back to supposedly pre-pandemic services. And I think people are forgetting that the hospitality industry, this area has kind of priced itself out of affordable housing, which is pricing us out of affordable workers. So that's, that commuting cost for our average employee. We're not drawing employees from Ogunquit with a 10-minute commute. So you stack on, the stress of commuting, the stress of a second job, the stress of the demands of the vacationer right now, and those soft skills that Ryan was talking about really all come into play. There seems to be an emotional shift right now in the workforce, and whether or not people are choosing non-face forward industries where they don't have to deal with the public, more task oriented versus your soft skills. So getting that kind of training out in front of potential employees, I think, is going to be really important going forward for people who want to be in retail, sales, hospitality.
Let me ask you this. Would it be helpful if we put together a training specific around this for the hospitality industry? Because I think soft skills are one thing, but soft skills for some of the things that you're talking about, like, it's almost threading that needle, right? Like, you need it, but you also need it in a certain way because of the environment that you're in. And because I wrote this down, that emotional based industry, like, I never thought of it that way. And I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, specifically Ogunquit, its main source is tourism, and it's really starting to become year round now. But I think that all of the employees that this region of the state and these type of businesses are looking for are really soft skills, forward facing industries. And whether that's a hotel, restaurant, or a gift shop, or an art gallery, it all comes down to this emotional based disposable income. How do we get them to spend extra money that they have enjoying our area, our service, our experience?
I just want to piggyback on that for just a second, because I read something really interesting. It's also exclusive to the lodging industry, where Unlike other service industry, if I walk into Nordstrom and I'm upset, I can leave Nordstrom, right? If I'm upset at a restaurant, I don't have to order dessert and I can go home very quickly. If I'm already committing to lodging with you for the next at least 24 hours, if not 72 hours, that soft skill at the front desk is like crucial for that like long-term, right? That they're a committed guest. It's not just a 2-hour dinner or a 20-minute shopping spree, right? So there's a whole different, you can be short and you can be snarky at the beginning, and then you have to deal with it for the next, 3 days, right? It's a whole different kind of subset of soft skills.
Really interesting, and I never thought of that. Great.
Our industry in hospitality and lodging, the majority of people get 2 weeks vacation a year, and the emotional expectation of those 7 days can
Being
sometimes be, the expectation of being perfect. And I think for an employee, if it doesn't turn out perfect, can really be disheartening for the employee, or if the expectation from the customer is way out of line, that can be really, heartbreaking and or kind of a morale killer.
Yeah. When most of your hiring? Because you mentioned it's year round now.
Yeah, we're pulling from inland. We're pulling from the Sanford area. We've got a couple from Shapley that are coming. We've got a few from Wells, but that commute time is really, pretty big in our industry, and most of it's all shift work. So it starts pretty early.
And timing of the year where you're doing your hiring, is that now? Or you mentioned it's turning into year round. Is it, most of it's now though?
Yeah.
That was a question I was going to ask, whether the timing lines up with like your programs and our season, especially if we are really, seasonal driven, right? There's nothing worse than an education that has no guests, right? If you're there in February and there's nothing here, right? I don't know how that lined up.
Yeah, so that was the reason I asked. So we would not want to do a training if you weren't hiring people, for example, in November. We want to wait and do a training so that like we're pulling in the people, the majority of the people into a training as you're getting them in, they could come and do a training and then come back into you. So the short-term workforce training is a little bit different than like the academic end. We don't work off of an academic calendar. We do we pop up, take down trainings all the time. And it's just dependent on need and then the timing of what the industry needs. I have some really good information. I really appreciate all the time that you guys and the responses and the feedback. I'm going to send out an email to this group. Alice, do you have people's emails that you would be able to share with me? Okay, perfect. I'm going to pass along the economic report, but then I also want you to have my contact information because I'd like this conversation to continue beyond this. I think this is good stuff, and I think obviously our job is to do this, right? Our job is to make sure that we're supporting and helping you. So we'll figure out a way to do it with your input.
I think you'll find again, Carrie, I hadn't yet heard the expression "angry August." I know how frustrating last summer.
I also had down.
We even started I remember being at the opening of Crew back in like early June of 2021, and Sherry Hansen walked by, and her family owns gorgeous Grant and Juniper Hill. And she already was saying the guests are just out of control. And that was June. And then she made a reference to like, this doesn't usually happen till August. So I would imagine last summer by August, it must have just been on steroids. So, but to this point of guest service, Kate, I worked in the industry for a long time before this. And I think any kind of hospitality front-facing business, in the tourism industry would really benefit from just guest service skills. Not only lodging again, to your point, Ryan, I never thought of that either as a 72-hour interaction perhaps. But even just, how do you get your restaurant worker, your host or hostess, I guess they don't call them hostess anymore, your host, to be able to take a deep breath on August 17th when someone's just being incredibly demanding. And, to be honest, the Ogunquit community pulls in people with high income, and our
And
guests
high expectations.
uncommonly demanding. Some of the stories I hear are just so ridiculous based on the way I travel, but I don't make $1 million a year, so I don't have those expectations. But I just think any kind of guest service training would be so useful across so many industries.
I also will send out, we did a project with Maine Office of Tourism and Hospitality Maine for Welcome Maine digital badge, and I can share that out. I don't think it's going to fill the gap for what you're asking for. I think it's something that you can do. It's like deliverable today, right? That you could send it out today, but I don't think it's going to fill exactly what you're talking about, but I will send it out.
Okay, great. Yeah, I remember that from like a year ago. You guys launched that like about last spring. Yeah.
I think it could also be an informative for the employer if we start working this out. There could be a workbook that's created in the teaching process that says, for this level of complaint, you are authorized to give this much of a discount, and for this is escalate to a manager, and and it just helps us to like clarify. Sometimes I feel like employees are not empowered; they don't know that they're empowered to do the right thing, and that's a lot of the critical thing. As an owner, I can make any decision I want to make, and I can just make this on the spot, and I can make you as the guest happy, right? Does the employee know that? So in this training of soft skill, it might help us to actually create the manual on the inside that says, while I need you to act on your feet, and this is when you escalate, and this is when you just take care of it, and we deal with it later.
So I just want to make sure I understand, right? So what you're saying is it's almost something we would create where the student's getting the training, right? But then the employer would fill out like, this is when it's appropriate for you to do this, and you can do these things, right? Because that would be different in every hotel, every lodging. Yeah.
It's almost like if I was to partner with this internship program, I would have to create a manual that would be the teaching guide for the student. But at the same time, I have to think about that manual, right? Like I have to put in the criteria and the steps, and when do I get a phone call and get brought into this? And when do you just handle it? And when do you send a bottle of wine? And when do you give a 50% discount, right? Like it's kind of just thinking through some of these processes that might help us. We think in our head as the owner that obviously this stuff is all on the table, but you as an employee might not know that you have access to that, and just creating
and empowering them to be able to do that.
Right.
Yeah, that's great.
And to jump on that, so that's something I'm considering when I'm going to do my training, as I don't want to be brought into every single little thing that happens. So yeah, I do want to authorize my front desk staff to be like, give them a gift certificate, or comp something. I do want to. So I'm right with you with that. I think that's a great idea. But on the training side of things, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound in cure. So it's really about preventing even happening. If you, like, we have 2-bedroom family suites, and I see that 6 adults want to share one of those, maybe we need to call them and let them know what's really in the room. Maybe that's not what they think it is, or so we can manage those expectations ahead of time. Like, it's that kind of like thought process that, the soft skills, and then thinking ahead like that to prevent the issues later on.
That could also be that could be an interesting component as well. I'm thinking about that. If there was an internship program and there was, or specifically for lodging, you could almost do a secret shopper, right? Like I could send my intern to Carrie's establishment as a guest, right? And just, what did you see? Did you understand? Did you navigate it well? Was the internet right? I mean, like all these things. And it's kind of like this, they get the experience to see it from the guest perspective. B, they can then come back and say, hey, I learned at Carrie's property that there was just no signage at the front door. The phone number didn't ring through, right? Or the old days, the voicemail was full, right? Like that type of stuff that, we just all walk past it a million times and don't even think about it. So it could be a way to give one of the things I learned as a chef was all about perspective, right? Mm-hmm. It's all about, if you think, I remember one of my most interesting exercises when we had a chef instructor who made us all just sit there silently and was like, just be quiet. And then we just sat there. And he was like, how long do you think that was? And we were all like, I don't know, like 3 minutes, 4 minutes. He was like, it was 22 seconds, right? And just that power of perception that was like, wow, so as you're sitting there thinking that your food is not coming to the table and it's taking forever, and you write the review that we waited an hour and a half in line, you might have actually only been there for 15 minutes, right? So just that perspective would be, I think, enlightening to all of us, as well as, if we're teaching soft skills, go be a guest at so-and-so location and report back, see what you see. What can you improve, right? That is beyond a curriculum.
Ryan, along those same lines, because I love that. I heard somebody come up had an idea the other day, and they said one of the things that they do is they bring their new hires to places that do it well. And they have them experience what well looks like, right? Like when we go to like they take them to like lunch at a restaurant and they're like, okay, like now let's think about like why is this going well? Why did you enjoy your experience? What do they do? And then they can actually see it, experience it in the context of knowing that they themselves then can replicate that behavior and then thinking about the skills that go into it. I love that idea, Ryan. That's
We
great.
used to teach when I was at Northeastern. We used to take interviewing PhD students out for lunch and watch them eat, basically, just to see, were they polite? Did they have manner? Like just the soft skills it was a test, right? It was did you interact with everybody? Did you say thank you? Did you, these are things that you can't get in, yes, you accomplished the paper and yes, it was 500 words, right? But check.
I like it.
One of the things that I think is interesting about our industry is we reward bad behavior.
How so?
When people complain or are mean, you're automatically say, oh, let me comp you. Oh, let me give you. So it's for us as veterans who have, we get paid to take the beatings. It's something different for a 19-year-old hostess or, a 20-year-old front desk clerk who people just behave poorly in our industry because they've been conditioned that if you complain, you get
a discount. You get everything.
So the training on forward-facing staff members is when is it a discount or when is it just oh my God, I'm so sorry I had to deal with that. I'll talk with so-and-so about that because this is a really great learning experience for them. And how to balance that. We as veterans know you can kind of read the room and see what they're looking for. Are they just looking to be heard from management, or are they looking for a discount because they were really had a bad stay, or if they were just being jerks and trying to get something for free? And that takes years to kind of develop your skill set on that. I think it's a lot of role playing type of thing. But we do, unfortunately, you don't see other industries that reward bad behavior. It's just kind of an interesting sociology concept.
I actually witnessed a couple. So I went to dinner on Saturday night with my husband. We always sit at bars because otherwise we can't each other. Long story short, the couple next to us, they were working hard to get discounts on things. And it was so interesting to watch because, well, it was terrifying for poor bartender, but like their appetizer was a little bit late. We don't want this anymore. We don't want it because it was an appetizer. And then she was like, oh yeah, I'll comp it. And they're like, oh, well, we'll keep it here. We'll pick at it. And then they finished the whole thing. They ate all of it, and it was just like, oh, you were just there to be difficult. I've never thought about that. Your industry rewards bad behavior, and you do. You really do. The sociology of it. Love it. Yeah.
And I think that's a huge piece, right? And to the point, to Heather's point, is that again, the veterans like us or the owners, we're prepared for those. Like we expect them, right? We know when to read the room, but if you're just the front line, or you have no skin in the game, right? Like maybe it's a different investment, right? So and it's like reading, like to the point, reading the level of it, right? I had somebody write a review that there was only one box of Kleenex in a room, and I had to like step back and think, well, like, wait a minute, hold on. Was that my fault? And I was like, was it empty? No. Did they ask for more? No. Right? Like how many, like, so it was like, that was like, for me, I was like, that's not really a comment, right? Like that's not constructive in any way. That's just somebody who's listing complaints about whatever. Right. And that was a learning moment for me where sometimes you just have to be in the moment to think about it. And, we don't want to subject people to that front line of torture, but you got to do it.
The next time they say, did you leave like 20 boxes of Kleenex in there?
No.
Just a pile up on there like a case. Just leave a case on the bed.
The good thing about reviews is, somebody like, you can read through it and say, boy, that person's a jerk. Why are they complaining about only one box of Kleenex in a room? So, I mean, that is at least if a normal human being is reading through a review and trying to say whether or not they like the property, hopefully they're just looking at that and going, well, that was a stupid comment from someone who just wanted to vent for no reason. That's a good one, Ryan.
But again, if that was a full teaching moment, right, you instead of comping the room, right, I would hand them a box of Kleenex, right, or hand them 4 boxes of Kleenex, right, and then that is just the empowering of listening, right? What is it an actual complaint? Did you hear them completely? Did you hear them accurately? And don't call me. I don't want to be called when somebody says there was only 1 box of Kleenex, right? Like that's something that should be handled, and you are empowered to do so, right? So it's building that curriculum of based on these crazy, who knows what's going to happen next scenarios. How do you teach soft skills?
Yeah. Well, I have a lot. I'm now on 3 pages of notes. And this has been great for me. Alice, I don't know what you should do next, but this has just been great.
Well, I'm glad. Thank you for everybody that participated this morning, because I think this is definitely a lively session, and I think it was honestly a great opportunity for us to kind of, I know how willing, excited Kate and the university, the Maine Community College system is about really addressing our workforce development issues head on. And because of COVID, there's a ton of money funneling into the community college system right now. And so I think it's really instructive for us to develop some kind of way to provide that kind of feedback to the community college system, because I think, as you can see from the way Kate's interacting with us, that they really are invested in meeting the needs of York County businesses. And tourism is such a big part of it that I appreciate you devoting time this morning, Kate, to doing that. And it'll be just let me know how I can help funnel some of these resources and report back out to our businesses, because I think what you're hearing from our 3 lodging owners today is probably exactly what's going in the other lodging properties too. And in terms of guest service, certainly at any point where there's a front-facing person in the hospitality industry.
Yeah. And again, I think they're hospitality, but then, like you said, front-facing, right? Like all of those front positions are so similar in some ways. Okay, this is great. This is really good.
So anything else you wanted to address, Kate? I know we touched basically on the apprenticeship that Maine Diner is doing in terms of, a kitchen general manager or a dining general manager. And I know that Sarah had spoken at that meeting. This was a Hospitality Maine meeting at the Maine Diner 2 or 3 weeks ago. And that Sarah was super interested. Do you think there's any, I don't know, again, I know I actually had a meeting with her last Friday, and she's just overwhelmed with getting her business open and ready for the season, just like the 3 of you are. Is there anything we can do to help, we as a chamber or a group of businesses can help to support development of something like that? And is that of interest with that, for a diner, basically what Jim McNeil, who owns the Maine Diner, was saying is, I realized I needed another me. And so I wanted to find the right person with the right soft skills, and then work with the community college system to train this person so they could be me. So I wouldn't have to answer the phone every single time a guest is unhappy about an egg being, cooked too hard. Is there a similar opportunity or need in the lodging industry for an assistant GM or a front desk supervisor, or, again, not so much the frontline work we've been talking about today, but, more that middle level manager that could support you guys better?
If it's helpful, I can forward along, and I know Jim and Karen would be fine with this. I can forward along what we created, which is and of course it's different because it's restaurant, but you can at least look at kind of like what is there. So it's a schedule of work, right? Like the things that they're going to do and how they're going to rotate through the different areas of a restaurant. Then the corresponding coursework that we kind of align to some of the custom modules that we're building out for them. I can send that, just if it kind of may get the juices flowing a little bit in terms of how might we create something that suits the needs of the hospitality lodging industry. And maybe that doesn't, and maybe it's nope, this won't work for us at all, nothing like this could work, but I think it might get the juices flowing on some other things that might. That too.
It's a big read.
Yeah.
And Jim's wife, Karen, the co-owner of the Maine Diner, came out of education, so she knew how to write a curriculum, and she worked closely with Kate on that. But yeah, so for your leisure reading to 10 o'clock when you're having your glass of wine before go to bed.
50-page document, but yeah.
But it would be at least worth downloading and saving, in a file when you do have the opportunity to look at it. Because I think it's a really nice long-term solution. If we can get that going at several businesses in Ogunquit, the word will get out that we have this kind of a training program. And it's, the people in the internship or apprenticeship, Kate, is there funding for that? Are they paying for that?
Yeah, so they did apply for a different bucket of money. So that was the main quality centers funding, and those students are getting the courses and the books covered. And
Okay.
the certification, which is pretty exciting. Yeah, so yes, they were able to tap into some funds.
So the point being, I think if we have, there's a sweet spot in working with community colleges and higher education to train people to be stellar superstars in our industry. It's the next couple of years with like the money that and the resources that, you know, rightly so, has been recognized that education needs.
I just lost something. I was going to mention something. I forgot it. Sorry.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for your time. If you want to share this with anybody on your teams, or if you have a best friend who owns a lodging property next door, certainly this is recorded, and it's in the links are in the member newsletter every week. Our last series is next Thursday, but we'll probably run the links in the member newsletter until about mid-May, when everybody starts to get too busy to even deal with that. So but anyway, thanks for participating this morning and providing so much good input for me and for Kate. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, I appreciate it all. Thank you.
So any last minute questions or anything? It looks like everybody's giving you the wave, Kate. All right.
Bye.
I think I'm done here. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.